This is the second part of the review for our Unit 1 test. Solve and graph the solution set. So we need to get C by itself, get rid of the 9 and the 4. So the first thing to get 0 is add 9, both sides, 4C, and if I do negative 3 plus 9, that's 6. So 4C is greater than or equal to 6. To get rid of the 4, we divided it out on both sides. C, the number that we divide is a positive 4, so the sign stays the same. And 6 divided by 4 is 1.5. So we would circle 1.5, and in this case, we do fill it in. It is equal to, so to show that's a solution, we fill it in. C is on the correct side, so we can follow the arrow and go to the right. 13, solve the inequality. X over negative 6 plus 1 is less than 7. So we need to get rid of negative 6 and we need to get rid of the 1. The way we get 0 is to take away 1 on both sides first. There's 0. So x over negative 6 less than 7 minus 1 is 6. And now that 6 is dividing with the x. So to get rid of negative 6, we need to multiply negative 6. The opposite of division is multiply. So we multiply negative 6 on both sides. Because we're multiplying a negative 6, the sign will flip. And this is 1, so we just have x. 6 times negative 6 is negative 36. Done. Solve the inequality. So we're going to distribute first. Negative 14r plus 7 is less than. Again, we're going to distribute on this side. 15 minus 6r. And because we have r's on both sides, that's the first thing you want to get together. And you could either add 14r or add 6. I'm going to add 6. Doesn't matter. So add 6r to like terms on both sides. We get 0 here. 15. This gives us negative 8r plus 7. And now we need to get rid of negative 8 and 7. So we first subtract 7 to get 0. And so negative 8r less than 15 minus 7 is 8. And the last thing we need to do is divide out negative 8 on both sides, because negative 8 right next to r means it's multiplying. So we divide it. Negative 8 over negative 8 is 1. And if you want to write a number 1, great. That is a 1. So we have 1r, or just r. The number we divide on both sides is negative. So we flip the sign. 8 divided negative 8 is negative 1. And that is our answer. R is greater than negative 1. Write the following inequality in words. Remember that if we're going to use the words less than for subtracting, less than flip-flops what's in back and what's in front. So I can say 3 times a number for the x is, nope, we just say 3 times a number less than, not is, just less than 12. And then for greater than or equal to, we have those choices that were in our table. The ones you'll see more often is at least, so I'm going to say is at least 15. And that's all we need to write for number 15. Solve for x. So because everything is being divided, we got a big divide on one side. That's the first thing we want to get rid of. So we'll multiply both sides by 2. 2 divide 2 over here cancels, and that's gone completely because that's 1. And I have 8 minus 5x. Negative 1 times 2 is negative 2. And now I need to get rid of the 8 and the negative 5. The 5 is attached to the x, so we get rid of that second. The first thing we need to do is get rid of 8. It's positive 8, so we minus 8 on both sides, which is 0 here. Negative 5x is negative 10. And to get rid of negative 5, those are multiplying because they're right next to together, right next to each other, so we divide it out. Even though we're dividing negative, this is an equation, not an inequality. So you don't need to flip a sign, it's just an equal sign still. Negative 10 over negative 5 is just 2, and that's x. Solve for x, and in this one I was supposed to say solve for w. So you can change that on your paper. If you have negative 9w, subtract 2w, those are on the same side of the street. Do not put plus 2 on the same side. The only way we can do this is because they're on the same side, we do exactly what it says to do, and it says to subtract. So we'll do negative 9w, subtract 2w. That gives us negative 11w. So we combine. So that's negative 11w, bring down plus 1, equals negative 43. Now the w wants to be alone, so we need to get rid of negative 11 and the 1. To get 0, we subtract 1 first. So negative 11w is equal to negative 44. And the last step, the negative 11 next to w is times, so we're going to divide negative 11 both sides. So w, negative 44 over negative 11 is just a positive 4 answer. Solve for x. So on this one we have a y and an x. So I can see that we're not going to have a number answer right away because it has x's and y's. So 4x minus 4y is equal to 7x plus 10. There's two ways to do this. We could either, we want to get the x's together and they're on different sides. So the first thing you want to do is get x's on the same side. So you can either subtract 4x or the 7x. And it really doesn't matter. I'm going to subtract 7. So 0, 10 equals negative 3x minus 4y. And we want to get x by itself, so we need to move the 4y and the 3. The first thing to move is the 4y, because that gets you 0. So plus 4y, both sides, negative 3x equals, in this case 10 and 4y are not like terms. You must leave them separate. 10 plus 4y. You just write it out next to each other. And the last thing, get rid of negative 3. We divide it out on both sides. Here's 1. So we have x is equal to 10 plus 4y over negative 3. If you ended up subtracting the 4 in the beginning, 4x here, then your answer would have looked like negative 10 minus 4y over positive 3. But these answers are the same, so it doesn't matter which one you have. They are the same thing. You want to take your friends to dinner for your birthday. The restaurant charges $2.25 to reserve a room and $10 for each dinner. You have up to $780 to spend. What is the most amount of friends you can invite? Up to $780. So I could spend $780. I could equal it. Or I could be less. I just can't go over how much money I have. And then the restaurant charges $2.25 to reserve a room. That means I pay the $2.25 just once and only once. But it's 10 for each dinner, so I'm going to be paying 10 for one person, 10 for another, 10 for another. So 10x or 10f if you want to say it's your friends, plus the $2.25 that you have to pay to reserve the room. That amount of money you're spending here needs to be less than or equal to $780. So we subtract 225 on both sides to get 0 here. 10x is less than or equal to 555. And then we need to divide out the 10 because that's multiplying. So we divide out 10, divide out 10. X is less than or equal to 55.5. So now look back at the question. It says, what is the most amount of friends you can invite? And so does that mean we want to stick with 55 friends or 56? In this case, because an extra friend is going to cost you more money, you have to go lower because you cannot spend over what you have. You only have 780 to spend. You can't go over. So we have to just say 55 friends instead of 56. So that is our final answer. You've done one of these already. We're going to distribute. 120 is equal to negative 48. I'm going to times negative 6 with negative 4x, so that's positive 24x. So the first thing I did, I distribute. Next, I need to get rid of 48 and 24. So I get rid of 48 first and get 0. And that's 168 equal to 24x. So I added, so that's the add property of equality. And the last, I divide out 24 on both sides. X ends up being 7. So lastly, I use the division property of equality. Kept it equal on both sides. Jan is going to a carnival. The carnival has 2 plans to choose from. So we have plan A and plan B. Plan A is $24 to get in and 2 per ride. Plan B does not have an admission fee but charges 5 per ride. In how many rides will the cost be the same? We want to know, when are these 2 plans equal? That's what the word same means, equal. So plan A, it costs $24 to get in. So we pay that once just when we go in, and then it's plus $2 per ride equal to plan B does not have an admission fee. So if you want to put 0, you could, and they charge $5 for every ride. And so now we want to get the r's together, and so we can minus 2r on both sides. We could have also minus 5r, but you'll see that leaving 24 by itself is going to be a little bit easier. So over here, I really don't need that 0, so I just have 5r minus 2r is 3r. Divide out the 3 on both sides, and so the number of rides is 8 rides until their plan prices are the same amount of money. And the last one here, we're going to distribute. So 2x minus 16 is 5x plus 5y. I have x's on both sides. First thing I want to do is get them together. So 2x, move it over. or you could have moved the 5.